Hello friends, before we start the video, I want to tell you that if you like my content, you can subscribe to my channel. By doing so, you'll greatly help promote my channel. Thank you. It was a sunny day in New York City in 2021. James, a college student, decided to purchase a new smartphone for himself. He searched online and found a good deal on Craigslist. He immediately made an appointment with the salesman and set off to meet him. Little did he know that this decision would change his life forever. When James arrived at the salesman's house, he was greeted with a warm welcome. The salesman seemed friendly, and James felt relieved that he had made the right decision. They sat down and discussed the smartphone's features, and the salesman showed James how it worked. James was pleased and decided to make the purchase. As he reached for his wallet, the salesman's expression changed, and before he knew it, he was under attack. The salesman was relentless and continued to beat him until he was unconscious. When James finally came to, he was lying on the floor with bruises all over his body. The salesman had taken his wallet and fled, leaving James helpless and alone. Fortunately, a passerby noticed James lying on the ground and immediately called the police. They arrived on the scene promptly and rushed him to the hospital. The doctors did everything they could, but unfortunately, it was too late, and James passed away due to the severity of his injuries. The police began their investigation, and it wasn't long before they found the culprit. The salesman had been involved in a series of similar crimes, and they were able to track him down quickly. He was arrested and put on trial for his crimes. During the trial, it was revealed that the salesman had been using Craigslist to lure innocent victims to his house. He would then rob them and use violence to intimidate them. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was found guilty of murder and robbery. The verdict brought some closure to James' family and friends, but it was clear that the trauma of the incident had left a permanent mark on them. They struggled to come to terms with the fact that someone they loved had been taken away so suddenly and brutally. They grieved for James, and it was a long road to healing. In the end, justice was served, but it came at a terrible cost. James' story is a reminder that we must always be careful when dealing with strangers, especially online. We never know who we might be dealing with and what their intentions are. It's important to be cautious and always prioritize our safety, even when we're making seemingly harmless purchases. The memory of James will live on, and we must all work towards preventing similar incidents from happening again in the future. Let us all remember James and keep his memory alive by being vigilant and safe. In the year 2020, Florida was known for its breathtaking beaches, hot weather, and crime rates that were always on the rise. One unfortunate day, a young man decided to buy a car from Craigslist, an online marketplace, hoping to find a good deal. Little did he know that he would end up in a life-threatening situation. The young man was excited to finally have enough money to buy a car. After browsing through the listings on Craigslist, he found a good deal and made an appointment with the seller. He arrived at the meeting place, a deserted alley, and waited for the seller to arrive. Suddenly, a group of men appeared out of nowhere and surrounded him. He tried to run, but they caught him and beat him up. The young man found himself lying on the ground, bruised and bleeding. The men who had attacked him took his money and his phone, leaving him helpless. To add insult to injury, they stole the car he had planned to buy. He lay there for what felt like an eternity, wondering how he was going to get out of this situation. As time passed, the young man realized that he had to act fast if he wanted to get his car back. He managed to get up, despite his injuries, and stumbled towards the nearest police station. The police listened to his story, and although they sympathized with him, they told him that they couldn't do anything unless he had some kind of evidence. Frustrated and dejected, he returned home, determined to take matters into his own hands. The young man spent days searching for clues about the people who had attacked him. He went back to the alley where it had happened and talked to the people who lived nearby. He also scoured Craigslist for any information about the car he had planned to buy. Finally, he found a lead. One of the attackers had made a mistake and posted a picture of the stolen car on his social media account. The young man didn't waste any time. He printed out the picture and took it to the police station, along with all the other evidence he had gathered. This time, the police took him seriously and launched an investigation. Within a few days, they had tracked down the criminals and arrested them. The young man was overjoyed to hear the news. The day of the trial arrived, and the young man sat in the courtroom, waiting for justice to be served. The criminals had pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Finally, the judge announced that they were guilty and would be sentenced to years in prison. The young man felt a sense of relief and closure as he left the courtroom. In the end, the young man learned a valuable lesson. He realized that he couldn't always trust strangers, especially on the internet. He also learned the importance of perseverance and determination, even in the face of adversity. Despite the traumatic experience, he emerged stronger and more resilient, and he knew that he would never forget the lessons he had learned. As for the stolen car, it was returned to its rightful owner, and justice had been served. It was a typical day in Texas when a young woman decided to sell her cell phone through Craigslist. She had used the platform many times before and had always had a smooth experience. However, this time she had no idea that her decision to sell her phone would change her life forever. As she arrived at the meeting place, she was met by a man who seemed friendly and eager to make the purchase. She handed him the phone, and he inspected it for a few moments. Suddenly, without warning, the man attacked her. He grabbed her by the hair, pulled her to the ground, and started assaulting her. The woman was terrified and helpless, but somehow managed to fight back. She kicked and screamed, hoping that someone nearby would hear her and come to her rescue. Eventually, the man overpowered her and robbed her of everything she had on her, including her phone. After the man fled, the woman was left lying on the ground, bruised and battered. She knew she needed help, and so she gathered all her strength and managed to call the police. In no time, the police arrived on the scene and took her to the hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, the police had launched a manhunt for the attacker. They used the information the woman had provided about the meeting place and the description of the man to track him down. After a few days, they managed to arrest him. During the trial, the woman faced her attacker and recounted the horrific experience she had been through. She described in detail how the man had attacked her and how she had managed to fight back. The attacker had no remorse for his actions and showed no signs of guilt. Finally, the verdict was given, and the attacker was sentenced to life in prison. The woman was relieved that justice had been served, but she knew that she would never fully recover from the trauma she had endured. In the end, the woman learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of online transactions and how important it is to be cautious when meeting strangers. She also found solace in the support of her family and friends who had stood by her through the entire ordeal. Though she may never fully forget what had happened to her, she knew that she would come out stronger and wiser. This story serves as a reminder that we must always be careful when using online platforms and meeting strangers. It is crucial to prioritize our safety and take every possible precaution to avoid becoming victims of similar crimes. In the end, it is up to us to protect ourselves and stay vigilant in today's increasingly dangerous world.